Hello and welcome back to another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency, where we explore fresh perspectives, challenge conventional thinking and shine a spotlight on the people shaping the future of estate agency. I'm your host John Savage, and in today's episode, well, this is one you don't want to miss. Joining me is Chris Arnold, an industry thought leader and the founder of The Brand Within. Chris has a truly unique take on what it really takes to drive success in estate agency, and spoiler alert, it's not just about KPIs or big name brands. Instead, it's about trust, character and finding the perfect agent-client fit. In this conversation, Chris shares powerful stories and hard-hitting truths about why the estate agency profession struggles with trust and how agents can redefine their roles as trusted advisors. So whether you're an agent looking to level up or a homeowner navigating the market, this episode is one that will leave you thinking differently about the power of relationships and integrity. So let's dive into this incredible conversation with Chris Arnold. So Chris, what is the one thing that truly maximizes the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
Hi John. The one thing really is finding the best fit estate agent. Not the best estate agent, the best fit estate agent. The two things aren't the same. You have, an industry now where everyone is competing to be the best agent, and that doesn't guarantee that the homeowner is going to get a maximum value from their home. I would question whether competition in this industry and comparison is actually benefiting the industry. I actually think it's actually making it worse because it encourages underhand practice, shortcuts, and a variety of other things which damage the reputation. And the reputation of estate agents, as you know, is pretty low. There is pretty much zero trust. They are down at the bottom with politicians in terms of trusted professions. And we'll talk about that later as to why that is. But I think it's important to get the best fit estate agent rather than the best agent. And if you're going to talk about best agent, you're going to talk about KPIs, you're going to talk about days on the market, percentage of asking price, offers achieved, days to completion, etc., etc. Those KPIs are irrelevant if you haven't got the best fit agent. And the best fit agent basically is based around character. And it's so important to get the best fit agent before you start.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll unpack this and it's cool, but it's interesting you say that, because I've never heard that put in that way before. So best agent versus best fit. And that again is so true. But I mean, let's elaborate. Talk to me more about that.
All right. If you talk about the best estate agent, I mean, there's obviously comparison sites, best agent, etc., etc. And I did this probably 7 or 8 years ago with a thing called agency negotiation, where I was negotiating with the agents on behalf of the vendors. And I thought in my naivety that the KPIs were important. I thought, okay, let's just find the best agent in that area, do the deal with them, and get them the best agent. The more I looked into that, the more I realized that those KPIs really were a balance, if you like. The fact that someone's got the most market share tells you nothing. It tells you that they're popular, but it doesn't tell you how they've got the market share, whether they've dropped the fees, whether they've reduced the asking price. So those KPIs really tend to be meaningless in terms of finding the best agent. But that's the metric that every agency will use. We've got the most market share. We've got the highest percentage of asking price offers achieved. We've got the shortest number of days on the market, or days to completion. So the agents are always using those KPIs to back up their claims to be the best estate agent, and each of those KPIs is dependent on another of the KPIs. So unless you're giving all of the KPIs, you can't really tell the full story. Now, what you've got in the marketplace is the vast majority of vendors are naive. You're going in there to these fragile people who are in an emotional state, trying to sell their home, trying to get the most money. and they're exposed to these ruthless estate agents who are, out there to basically sell a grandmother.
Mm.
So they're not going to tell the vendors the full story. They're going to say, okay, this is our best point. Let's not tell them about the worst points of all the things that happened. So you're getting this cloudy issue, if you like, around the competence of the agent. They're claiming to be the best, and then if they're persuasive, they sign the vendor up, and then a few months down the road, the vendor finds out that they're actually not the best estate agent. So you've got all this emphasis on competence and being the best, and it's actually irrelevant to start with. I mean, you do need competence, you do need performance, but that is all irrelevant unless you have the best fit, and that best fit comes from character.
Mm. Because
Character.
you're a big fan of someone's character, aren't you?
I'm a huge fan, and let me tell you one story of a guy I met probably 10 years ago now, an estate agent, and we'd had a little bit of conversation on the online. When I actually met him, he told me a couple of stories, and the first story he told me was about a negotiation, and it was a guy that was buying this flat to rent out, and he'd made an offer which was a pretty low ball offer, and the agent told me that he said, I talked to him and got his offer up, and then he still, wasn't happy with that. The agent kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and explaining that the landlord's or the potential landlord's yield was going to be 6%, which is a great return if you got that price. And the agent talked him up from a basic figure to the asking price, and it was a win-win situation. The landlord was happy because he's got a good yield. The agent was happy because he got the asking price. The vendor was happy. So it's a win-win-win situation. Now, that demonstrates to me the character of someone. A lot of agents in that scenario would have said, okay, let's take the first offer. Okay, maybe let's not take the first offer. Let's take the next offer. Okay, that's great. But to keep pushing and keep pushing relentlessly until you get what you want for your client, that to me demonstrates a lot of character.
Yeah.
And that was one story that this agent told me. Another one that he told me, which again emphasized his character, was that he had a repossession on his books, and he knew where this house was, or this apartment was. He went and knocked on the door, no answer, and he went back again the next day, knocked on the door, no answer. Finally, the vendor or the homeowner answered the door, and he said, what's the problem? You've got a repossession. He said, well, I've lost my job. Cut a long story short, that agent looked around, got the guy a job. And I'm not quite sure how the story ended, whether it stopped the repossession or whether it went ahead. But the point of that story is basically it shone a light on this guy's character, which to me, it's probably 10 years ago now, and I remember the stories both very, very vividly. And there was another story which I won't tell you now. I mean, that to me outlined the character of that guy, and it's probably one that you remember.
It is. It absolutely is. And you just put goosebumps over me because that was very close. And the guy, a Filipino guy trying to protect his family, couldn't get a job because he didn't have a visa to work. And that was his hope, his dream. Basically, the flat was a mess. It was an absolute mess. It was forgive my language, but it was a shithole. But that wasn't the point. It was a human. It was a human in that house trying to protect his family the best way he could. And he didn't want to get involved in drugs, didn't want to get involved in violence, crime, or anything else like that to protect his family. And it was an easy win for me because it was like a bank, right? We need you guys to sell this flat. And that was me asking him the question, why, what's going on? And yeah, that is what I love. It's a really hard one because when you've got a repossession, I don't want the repossession. I want to know why. I actually got the fella a job working which enabled him to actually basically pay the mortgage, or at least started to pay the arrears back, which actually kept the flat for himself, which meant I talked myself out of a deal, which was easy. Repossessions are the easiest things in the world to sell, but that's not my bag. My bag is really, so thanks for bringing that up, Chris. That's made me quite emotional, that has. But it's, you're playing with people's lives.
Yeah,
And that's the thing that really gets to me in this industry is where sellers are, they're human.
yeah,
Buyers, they're human. So when people see me on maybe TikTok, or when people see me being really forthrighteous, and especially with a fuck you attitude, is
yeah,
because that's a human that you're fucking around with.
yeah,
And its industry is notorious for people just saying things that sound nice purely to fucking steal someone's money.
yeah,
And that infuriates me big time. And that's such a good point you raised, because really for me, the agent, I mean, when someone says, so John, what do you think is the one thing that truly maximizes the value of someone's home? I always say price, Chris.
yeah,
And the reason I say price, even though I know it's a myriad of things, and you've hit nail on the head, so like in this conversation, but the reason I say price is because most agents are fucking shit, and most agents are lying scumbags.
yeah,
And the problem is with that is that you could have the worst agent in the world, but if they get the price correct, because of the good opinion of other people, they stand a good chance of getting it sold. Doesn't mean they're any good, the agent. It just means that they happen to have something that a buyer wants.
yeah,
Whereas when it comes to character, who are the people that are actually operating inside that office? Who are the negotiators inside that office? Who is the sales manager inside that office? Who is the owner of that office or that company, that corporate or that independent? Who are they? What do they represent? So yeah, we've never spoken about character, Chris. And that,
I mean,
yeah,
to
mate, that's
me,
huge.
to me, it's about the lack of trust in a state agency is basically on or down to character or lack of character, if you like.
Yeah.
I mean, the competence of a lot of agents is there. I mean, they're qualified, they're members of the National Association of Estate Agents. So the competence to actually transact a home sale from start to finish is there. The performance is open to question, but actually the important part of it is the desire, the will there to actually do the job properly.
Hmm.
There are so many opportunities for any agent to cut corners and say, okay, um, we need to pay the rent this month. Let's get X, Y, Z sold for 10% less than we could actually get for it. So the integrity matters, and that is where the lack of trust stems in a state agency,
Yeah.
and um, it's rife throughout the industry. I mean, from the top to the bottom, people will do. I mean, one of the popular sayings is, I'll do whatever it takes to get the sale. And they do, and once they've got it, they do whatever it takes to get the commission.
Hmm.
And that's why the character of an estate agent is so important. You have to have an agent that you can trust. And it's not just being confident that you've got a good agent, it's being certain that you've got the right agent. And I'm at the moment, I'm in the process of selling my house. And I've appointed a guy called Asif Koa, who's with EXP.
Hmm.
And I met Asif probably 6 months before I instructed him, because he came to help me when with a few personal problems that I'd got in the last year. I instructed him basically the way the story plays out was that I was going to sell the house. He was going to be the agent that I wanted for the very simple reason that he'd helped me before when a lot of people were offering, but he came round and did me a huge favor. He and Gemma, his wife, did me a huge favor. So it was never ever going to be any other agent but Asif.
Hmm.
When he came to the house, um, I basically was transparent with him. He was transparent with me. I was basically saying, okay, this is the bottom price. This is my bottom line. I don't want to go below that figure. And he's okay. That's fine. And then this is how I think we should market it. He was saying this is how we should pitch the asking price. From there, it was basically deal done, handshake deal. I signed a contract later on. I'm not even sure how long the contract is for because, I basically trust as if implicitly. Um, in terms of the fee, he said, I'm going to, because we're friends, I'm going to basically let you pay whatever fee you want. And that, no other agent was going to give me that deal. He said, well, so I said to him, well, what's your fee? He said, well, my usual fee is 2.5%. So, okay, fine, let's work it out. We did a deal, which was basically a sliding scale fee, which I'm very keen on. And basically, if you achieved X price, anything above that, we'd split 50-50. So the whole thing was just effortless, efficient, seamless. I got 100% trust in him. I know in Solihull where I live, I know dozens of agents. I know hundreds in the Midlands. I could have asked any of them to do the job, but there's only one that I trust implicitly, and that's the one that I instructed. And to me, it's not about his performance, because if I matched his performance up against John Shepherd or Hunters or any other number of agents, he probably wouldn't have matched up to it. But in terms of the actual comfort I got from giving him the instruction, safe in the knowledge and secure in the knowledge that he was going to have my back and do everything that he could, and it's turned out exactly like that, because he's within 7 days of instructing him, he got an offer. He got another offer on top of that. He got another offer on top of that, and he's doing all that he can to get me the best offer and the best price. And he doesn't know how much he's going to get out of it. I don't know how much he's going to get out of it yet. But we're just working together to get the house sold, and we trust each other to do the right thing. To me, that's how a estate agency and selling houses should be, not a transaction whereby, well, we've got you an offer, we think you should accept it.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that you could get more if you really pushed. Now, going back to best fit agent, every homeowner has got a different wish list, if you like, for selling the home. For me, I wanted a reasonably quick sale, so getting the maximum price wasn't the most important thing. Now, if you want to get the most price, you need an agent that can say to you, to get you the most price, it's going to take you probably a little bit longer. Now, an agent that is going to take longer to get the price has to have that determination, relentless determination, to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing to get that price. It's no good saying, okay, we'll take your house on. We know you want us, get the best price, and then say, okay, well, we think you should take this offer because it's a reasonable offer and it's happening within a couple of weeks, knowing full well that the owner actually wants a much higher price and is prepared to wait and wait and wait for it. So they've got the wrong fit agent working for them. So that's the scenario. And
Yeah.
I think it plays out nearly every transaction. Very, very few homeowners get the right fit, the best fit agent.
Exactly.
And conversely, very few agents get the best fit owners.
Yeah.
You
And you've just raised a fantastic point, because when I think I've told you before, certainly I've mentioned this before, when I first started, of course, in the industry, I was the world's worst estate agent, got more complaints than offers. When I become a sales manager, same scenario, I was just at a different level, but now I'm a sales manager getting beaten up and spat out by sellers that were accusing me of not knowing my market, or that I was trying to sell the house cheap to make a quick buck, or I was trying to sell it to one of my developer mates, purely on the basis a lot of the other agents were concentrating on me, and basically that's what they were telling the sellers. So when I come along telling the truth, I just got, again, beaten up and spat out because I didn't know how to tell the truth and get away with it.
yeah,
And what's really interesting is what you just said then about the best fit. So sometimes the seller is not the best fit for the agent. And so we had the rule, which was always go for the second sale. Always go for the second sale. Because that meant by going for the second sale, and don't get me wrong, Chris, there are loads of things that I do within the process to make sure that a seller fully understands what I'm saying, but not only that, buys into it.
Hmm.
So the last 63 valuations that I did when I was working for an agency, the 44 that came to market, I sold 41 of them. And not only that, my valuation accuracy rate of what ended up selling average for those was 99.47%. And that was a market that wasn't particularly that great. Well, my competitors were basically in and around averaging 93 to 94%
Yeah.
of what they were telling the sellers that they could achieve.
Yeah.
Now, the point is in that I wasn't going for the first sale. So, and the reason I wasn't going for the first sale is because I am trying to work out who the homeowner is. And if the homeowner is not a good fit for me, then I'm not going to take their property on because I've done that. I've been there and it's made me ill because of my levels of integrity. And I've ended up being persuaded by a seller on a few occasions to go with their price or go with a price another agent said just to have a property on my books has made me ill. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing that game. The game I will play is the game where it's best practice, best advice, loads of proof to back up what I'm saying, but also hitting the reset button for a lot of sellers because I think sellers are also have a shared risk and shared ownership. So your partnership with Asif, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not you demanding as a seller what you want. You've been honest enough with him to say, right, here's my benchmark. It's the baseline. Don't come to me with anything below here. And the guy's going, okay, fine. Let's do a sliding scale. And he's marketed the property and he's got 3 offers within 7 to 10 days. That is incredible. And but that when I say that's incredible, that is the way agency should be. That should be the minimum standard.
Yeah.
Because of course the fun begins when you get into the detail. Once an offer's actually been accepted and now you're going down the conveyancing route because anything can happen, right? That's where agents really make their money. But yeah, I think you're dead right. You're absolutely correct when it's coming down to not every agent is the right fit. Well, most agents aren't the right fit for most sellers, but there are sellers out there that agents end up taking on that they should never have taken on either.
Yeah.
So it is a
Mm,
two-way street.
one of the things, sorry to interrupt. One of the things that I was asked on a couple of weeks ago, you've never done a valuation. How would you do a valuation or a market appraisal if you like? And my way of doing it would be totally different from 100% estate agents.
Mm.
I would go in and I would introduce myself and I would not do I would not do a valuation at the first meeting. I would not discuss my fee at the first meeting. It would be basically, are we a good fit? And if
Mm.
we're a good fit, let's arrange another meeting. Then we'll do the fee. Then we'll do the appraisal.
Why would you do it that way, Chris?
Why would I do it that way? Because if they ring you up a second time, they're keen, they're committed. So basically, they've seen other agents, they're coming back to you as a second meeting. They're keen. They weren't impressed with the other agents because they've come back to you.
And
So
they've had nothing to prove.
they've had nothing to prove. So they've got a flavour for what those agents are. They've got no flavour for what you've told them in terms of proprietary information. You haven't given away your proprietary information of what you think the house is worth, what fee you're going to charge them, anything like that. All you're
Mm.
talking about in the first meeting, are we a good fit? What do you want to achieve from me selling your home? Do you want it to be quick? Do you want it to be long? Do you want the best price? Do you want superb communication? All the things that you need that will make you really happy and comfortable to make the whole process efficient for you. Let's talk about that now. Let me talk about myself. And Chris Watkin, one of my friends, is basically always on about it's not about the agent, it's about the vendor. In the first meeting, for me, it's always about the agent. The agent being transparent enough to say, this is what I value, this is my belief, this is my convictions, this is why you should be talking to me. Thanks for your time. If you need to have another conversation about the price of your house and my fee, let's organize that when you're ready. So there's no pressure at all. Instead of going in and saying, okay, let's trial close, let's close, let's overcome all the objections, and then we've signed somebody up. You've actually gone in there, done your pitch about who you are and why you're deserving of the instruction. You're finding out about the vendor. You're finding out if they're looking for someone as cheap as chips. Okay, well, we can recommend you to somebody else that's going to give you a good fee. So you're finding out about the vendor, they're finding out about you, and if it's a good fit, come back, then let's do it. And if, as I say, if they say come back, let's talk about the valuation and the fee, you're pretty much in the frame at that point, because they've seen other agents probably, and they're still keen to talk to you. So the other agents
and
going to be great.
and it may feel like to an agent that they're wasting their time, right? By going there and actually doing like meeting and greeting and actually working each other out,
Yeah.
forming a relationship, seeing whether it actually could be a good fit. But what I actually really like about that is most agents really, if they're worth anything, will know what the pounds per square footage is for certain roads, for the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
They will know what the local, national and international appetite is for purchasing property. They will know the nuances. If they know their buyers and they know how to qualify their buyers, they will know exactly who is going to be purchasing that property, and they will have massive intel into what's really going on. But here's the thing. Imagine now, bear in mind, most of my instructions, well, not most of them, all of my instructions were pretty much won at the property. I never put any pressure on anyone. They didn't have to tell me there and then or anything else like that. But literally, I would say that I won it there. I just happened to get the phone call maybe 2 or 3 days later to say, right, John, can you sell my flat or sell my house?
Yeah.
But though, what you've just said really resonates with me, because if an agent listening right now actually thinks about that, how refreshing is it that the agent isn't going around there begging for the deal, saying things that sound really nice. Oh, but by the way, you have to sign this 26-week contract for me to get you that price because I'm going to have to work really, really hard.
Yeah.
No, well, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on, for example, how to quantify that trust? So we've done that first initial meeting, yeah, where the agent and seller are getting to know each other, getting to work out whether they're the right fit. And I love it. I absolutely love that. They're getting to know whether they're the right fit for each other or not. But then how does a seller, like for yourself, with your example with Asif,
Mhm.
how do you quantify whether they were still just telling you things that you wanted to hear or not? How is that quantified for you to
They're,
go out to uncomfortable?
they're not telling me about their competence. They're telling me about their character. So I'm looking for a no surprises environment, no wasted time, no easy promises, no disappointments. I'm looking for efficiency in the process.
Yeah.
So they're telling me about their character, and if they're making easy promises, then we're not a good fit. And I can tell that, and the vendor can tell that I'm not the agent for them.
Like
Uh,
we've got loads of buyers. We've got
yeah,
loads of buyers looking for a property like yours.
yeah. And the other thing about an estate agent is, it's a status um, position. So the one with the highest status, if you like, will more than likely get the instruction. If it's a low status guy and he's not respected and he's just going in trying to, hustle his worth and get a cheap fee, he might pick up a few instructions, but the chances are it's going to be someone with a high status, not necessarily a high status brand, but a high status person who is confident in himself, assured, um, and that status is actually increased by walking away and saying, okay, this is who I am. I found out a little bit more about you. I think we're a good fit. Let's talk again if you want to. If you think the same, let's talk again and arrange another meeting.
Mm.
That positions the status of that agent much higher than a stranger goes in and says, okay, your house is worth 550 and my fee is 1.5%.
Yeah.
Just like all the others. So, as I say, I in any appraisal, I wouldn't discuss the fee. I wouldn't discuss the value. I would more than likely get involved in a sliding scale fee because then, the agent and the vendor are going to suffer or benefit equally.
Mm.
Uh, and at the moment, the way that the fee structure is set in the UK, an owner can drop £50,000 on a house, and the agent loses 750 quid,
Yeah,
which
and
is
it's a
nothing.
piss take. That is a
Yeah,
monumental piss take. I
yeah.
agree.
So there's no incentive for the agent to do that, and
Mm.
that is something that the vendor's not aware of. He's basically saying, okay, well, my house is on for 500,000. Um, Someone's offered 450. Well, I'm losing 50 grand. Well, the agent's persuading him that it's a good offer to accept.
Yeah,
So accept 450. The vendor's dropped 50 grand. The agent's lost 750 quid off his fee, which is
yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
And
So
he's actually going to get probably 7.5 grand.
yeah, no, no. Listen, you're absolutely right. So there's no incentive because if it's let's say easy maths, 1%. Well, that's 1% of 50 grand. What is that? That's 500 quid. Yeah, right. So that's £500, which is like really when you think about the negotiator
Yeah,
inside that office, right? Saying, "Oh, I said 450 is a good offer. I really think you should accept it. The market's not quite what we thought it was. Bullshit, 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 and a bit more bullshit, right?" £500 to the negotiator actually isn't £500 to the negotiator. That's 500 quid to the office.
yeah,
The negotiator is getting 10%
yeah,
of the all up fee. And let's say the all up fee is 7.5 grand and
yeah,
they're getting 10%. They're getting only 750 quid on top of their basic, right? Well, I say only because some people that could be worth a lot of money. But the point is, it's just 750 quid that they were getting. It's not a great deal of money for them. They're not losing anything really, the negotiator. If anything, they're gaining. And that is highlighted. What you just highlighted there is actually the real game. I mean, for me, there's three types of agents. You got the corporate guys, and the corporate guys are all about the higher echelons within the business. The higher echelons in the business have got very used to a lavish lifestyle. And from the cleaner right up to the very top, they're all in on the act. And I've seen it firsthand. An agent said to me, a CEO or CFO said to me, John, why do you care so much about what a seller achieves? That's not your job. Your job is to list as many properties you can list and get them signed up to a 22-week contract and let the seller come to you to say their property's on the market for too much money, right? So that's frictionless because lots of sellers look at Rightmove, they look at Zoopla, they form an opinion, but they don't realize it's the anchoring effect that's keeping them up to the big money. The independent agent now needs to keep the office doors open and keep people's salaries paid, but they don't want to play the game the corporates are playing, but they end up having to play the game the corporates are playing purely just to try and stay in the game. So they end up saying things that sound nice. And that doesn't mean to say the self-employed agents are better, right?
mm,
Doesn't mean they've got more integrity, right? For me, one of the things is 0 day contract.
yeah,
If I'm going to tell you that I'm the best thing since sliced bread, that I've achieved this, I've achieved that, I'm capable of doing this, I know every single buyer there is ever to have known ever in the world, right? And by the way, my contract's 0 days. So just in case, right, within the next couple of weeks, I don't perform like I'm telling you I can perform, you can get rid of me within one phone call. Happy. And that, for me, is the way in which a seller can truly know. The problem is, though, Chris, is that when a agent, and I know they're not going to do this to you, it would be impossible, but for most sellers, they believe the mistake that they are making is the what if. But what if they could get me the extra 50? What if they could get me the extra 100? Yeah,
which goes
that
back to the trust factor and the character. If you trust someone implicitly, not just have confidence in them doing their job well, but trust them implicitly to have your back. And I mean, I sent you a video with Simon Sinek about teamwork,
mm,
and it's who you want in your corner when the tough, when the going gets tough. Who do you want around you to have your back in that situation? And Simon Sinek was saying you don't want the guy who has got low character and sort of high performance skills. You want the guy with basically the high character over the one with the high performance skills, because it's got someone. He was talking about sort of the SEAL teams in America, but basically it's the same scenario, and I know you were a para, and you understand the sort of military analogies. It's basically, protecting people. You've got their back. You're not going to let any harm come to them. You're not going to let them be taken advantage of, and that works both ways. It's got to be reciprocal with the homeowner as well. They have got to have the loyalty to you and the trust in you to fend off these other agents that come with enticing offers.
Mm.
I mean, I could have a dozen agents knock on my door tomorrow and say, "We'll sell your house for free. You're going to save 10 grand." And I'm that loyal to my agent that they can say what they like. They're not going to get the instruction. So it has to be reciprocal. The agent has to have my back, and I have to, have his back. There's got to be the loyalty there. And talking about character, I mean, Asif has been a client of mine, and he's told me about his core values. One of those core values is compassion. Another is family, but the important one is loyalty. To me, he's a loyal guy. He values loyalty. Now, someone who values loyalty has got the character. They've got the trust. Because you're not loyal to people that you don't trust. So you're loyal to people that you do trust. So that is the sort of the interaction, if you like, the personal relationships and the character judgment that anybody can make. Most people are pretty good at character judgment. If you say to a person, what was your initial impression of that guy? I didn't like him, or I loved him, I thought he was great. You can make these snap judgments and instant character judgments fairly easily. And it's down to the energy that people give off. But if you say to someone, "Tell me about his performance. Is he a good agent? Does he do the job well?" They haven't got a clue. I mean, if I went to a local garage and said, "Fix my car," I wouldn't have a clue how to ask a guy how he was going to change my clutch, because I don't have any knowledge of it, and the vendors don't have any knowledge about how an agent does the job. But what they do have a fair grasp of is whether the character of that person is worth pursuing. So that's really where I'm at with this trust and I keep banging on about trust and character, and to me, it's the brand within. When I started in a state agency, I did agency negotiation, which was on the vendor's side, negotiating against the agents and finding the best agents for the vendors. And as I say, I quickly realized that wasn't the place to be, because the agents really weren't in a good spot anyway. They were, in survival mode, clinging, desperate for anyone with a warm pulse to get an instruction. Mm-hmm. So I moved from agency negotiation then into personal branding. I spent a few years in personal branding and realized that personal branding was all hype and very not superfluous. It was sort of what's the word, on the surface, if you like. It's all hype and PR and spin. So your personal brand could be quite high. You can have a very high profile in a state agency, but that doesn't mean to say I can trust you. It doesn't mean to say I understand who you are and what you value, and whether I can trust you to sell my house. So that's really where the brand within came from. It went deeper into who you are inside. The brand within it's basically about what you value and your character, as opposed to who you are as a person and are you well known, but not so much are you well known, but are you worth knowing?
Love that.
Yeah. So that the whole thing to me is, we have an agency sector that is one of the least trusted professions in the UK, and it's the same in America. How are you going to fix it? Most people say, okay, let's fix it by making people qualified. You can qualify a doctor, you can qualify a financial advisor, and they rip you off. Both of them rip you off.
Mm.
So unless you know who they are, what they value, what their character is, and whether it's a good fit with you, it's a risky business.
Yeah, and do you know, one of as we've been speaking right now, I've been thinking about a question as you've been talking, and I love I've now it smashed me straight in the face now. The brand within, not the brand, but the brand within. That's genius, mate. I didn't. A penny didn't drop, but now it's perfectly
My
dropped.
email address is
Go on.
Chris at thebrandwithin.me, M-E.
I love that. The brand within me, mate. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But just here's one for you, right? One of the questions I think maybe sellers, and tell me if you think this is a good question or not. One of the one, and also a good question for estate agents that are valuing property, right? Trying to get property on, and especially if they've got heart, not for the dickheads because they won't say it. But I'm thinking maybe a question a seller could ask an agent is how many of the properties you've been instructed on to sell have you told the buyer not to continue with the purchase? And how many sellers have you told, please, please, please don't sell to these buyers because they're taking the piss out of you?
Mm. I think, I mean, that's basically into the transparency section that I was mentioning. That you have to be transparent in who you are. You have to be transparent in how you do your job, and why you're doing your job. So this transparency leads to that sort of efficiency, and it's that sort of teamwork, if you like. And again, back to the trust factor. If someone told me that I trusted implicitly, I would take their advice.
Yeah.
If I wasn't 100% trusting of them, I would say, no, 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 we don't want to lose an offer. Let's go with that, buyer, or let's accept that offer.
Mm.
So it goes back to that trust. Are you 100% certain? Because confidence is for kids. You have to have certainty about the person that you're in working with. It's that teamwork. I've got your back. We're in this together, and let's go forward and do this, as opposed to, well, we're a team, and we're working 9 to 5, and at the end of the day, I'm off.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And that's not agency. Sunday afternoon, if I get a call from a seller or get a call from a buyer and they're absolutely crapping themselves and they need to run something by me, I'll pick that phone up. I will. And if people say, no, 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 you can't do that. There has to be a line. You need to draw that line. Absolutely not. Buyers, sellers, massively stressed out their head. And I'm not going to be that person who turns up to work on Monday morning and only receive that call on Monday morning, or my phone goes off at 6. No, that's not going to happen. It's basically because you are a team and it is a shared risk. And one of the things I do say when I basically was valuing property is to a seller when I said, look, my only advice I can give you at the end of the day, after all of the agents you've actually spoken to about I'm not telling you to use me. I'm not telling you to use me, right? All I am going to advise you to do is use the agent that said the least, but the agent you liked the most. And that may not be me. And the reason I'm telling you that, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, is because you are going to be in this for the long game. And you need to know that actually the agent, you can work with them because things always go wrong during the transaction. And if you can't actually work with that person and you've just solely gone with what they've told you without any real checking of evidence of what they've said, then that can go massively wrong if you don't have the right person in your call. And I'm not telling you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, that's me, by the way. That could be anyone you've met today, but that's my advice.
Yeah.
And it's a big, because it's the honest advice.
Yeah. From an agent's point of view, I mean, you and I both know Ryan Fletcher,
Yeah.
for Marketing Syndicate, and he's always saying, never talk to anyone until they know you're a someone.
Yeah.
That really is the essence of a state agency. If you're going in there, I sort of manipulate that one a little bit into never talk to strangers. So you basically, if you're going to talk to a stranger, it's not good for you. Sorry, it's not good for the vendor.
Mm.
Talking to a stranger, you can't trust them. You might have a little bit of confidence in them, but not a huge amount. So you don't talk to anyone, that's a stranger. Don't talk to anyone until they know you're a someone. So there has to be that build-up of status, and there's got to be the sort of collaboration and communication between the agent and the potential client. It's got to move away from a transaction into a business relationship. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, how does we as agents get involved with the brand within?
pick up the phone, 073 69 251 435. Look at the website, www.thebrandwithin.me. There's also thebrandwithin.rocks, which is a Amazon publishing website. To me, I mean, when I was talking to Chris Watkin, I basically was saying that 99% of agents in the UK aren't going to be interested in having a brand within. They might want to go into a personal brand because from that you get a lot of leads. I'm not into getting leads. I'm into getting better clients for you, better fit clients. You can get leads from anywhere. You go in, you convince and convert. But actually getting best fit clients, you attract the energy that resonates from you. So you're giving off a certain message, you're giving off a certain energy or vibe. You're attracting the right fit clients for that energy and that vibe and that message. So you're basically you're not getting a personal brand with me. You're getting the brand within. You're getting best fit clients, and it's a very sort of niche market. And I'm accused of being negative and having a polarizing opinion, and that's exactly what I want.
That's why you're on this show, Chris.
While I'm on this show, and I had a good conversation with Rob. You'll know Rob, who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Um, I was on about door knocking and saying it's for losers, and Rob was having a go at me about it's not for losers and blah 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 blah. And we ended up good mates. Um, and it's a matter of getting that polarized opinion. Donald Trump does it. He sort of upsets half the country, and the other half fall in love with him.
Mm.
Um, so it's finding your best fit clients in terms of these are your tribe. This is your tribe. These are the people that are going to have your back. These are the people that are going to be loyal to you. These are the people who are going to spread the word. And they're not going to do it because you're a great estate agent. They're going to do it because you're a great person.
Yeah.
And, it's a matter of finding your tribe, finding the people that make you comfortable, and just really as Ryan Fletcher says, repelling or pushing the others away. You don't want them. I could walk down the street and go into the head office of the biggest estate agent in the country. It was only a mile away from me. I could get my house sold for free, but it's no interest whatsoever because the process of doing that would involve them doing all sorts of things, lack of communication, manipulation, everything that I don't value in a business relationship. And to me, it's just not a good fit. And I mean, let's talk about you for a second. Let's say I've got a house in Marlow. I'm going to sell my house. I've looked at some of the agents there. You've got Fine and Country, you've got Savills with 15% market share, you've got Milsons with 20% market share, you've got Hamptons with 12%, you've got Ballards with 5%, you've got Chancellors, you've got Simmons with 9%, you've got Knight Frank and a few others. And those are the sort of top 10 if you like. What can they offer that you don't or can't?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I would say if I'm gonna have an objective perspective on this,
Yep.
then straight away what they have over me is great big brand names, big massive agencies, loads of offices. Um, uh, on the face of it, wow, they're huge. They must know what they're doing.
Who cares?
Versus,
Who cares about that?
no, because basically, so sellers. So in my experience,
Well, let's just stop you there for a second. Let's say you're going to buy a house in Marlow. Do you care whether it's with Knight Frank or Savills?
no, absolutely not.
Okay, so the buyers don't care who the agent is for the house that they want to buy.
That's correct.
Okay.
The problem you have when it comes to the cognitive bias of sellers is their remit. Most sellers is that they don't want to make mistakes, and the mistake, there's two things here. There's the mistake, which is John is telling me a price that, so, and this is me before, this is when I first started valuing property, right?
Yeah.
John is telling me a price that is scary, is I don't know whether to trust this, and it's scary because the other agents have told me that he doesn't know necessarily what he's talking about, and also I don't think he knows his market either, because look what everything else is currently on the market for, which leads me into the next scenario, which is there are 10 reasons why people buy. So the main five is to make money, save time, avoid effort, escape mental or physical pain. Now, there is to feel loved, there is to get comfort, there is to be more hygienic, right? Which also makes up the 10. But the biggest one, which is in 10th place, but for me, the biggest, is status.
Yeah.
So think about the car you drive, the house you live in. Think about when you were younger, the girls you went for, right? Think about the golf club that you bought versus the golf club that you didn't in terms of brand, right? So if you look on my wrist, sorry, I've got 125 pound Swatch watch. It's my pride and joy.
Mhm.
There are people that would not be seen dead in 125 pound Swatch watch. They would wear the 12,000 pound Rolex. I Me wearing a Rolex would not increase my status. So when you've got Savills, you've got Knight Frank, you've got the other agencies you just said, the world is now against me because I'm by myself. I'm new to the market. I'm a nobody, right? Am I going to increase the status of the seller that I'm talking to, especially to your point earlier, when they don't trust estate agents, when we're disliked before we say a word, as Ryan Fletcher says, and we're distrusted before we walk into somebody's property? So the world is absolutely against Little John Savage. So you're dead right when you're saying about, well, the buyer doesn't give two shits, whether it's with Knight Frank or whether it's with Savills or whether it's one of these big brands, but suddenly the seller does really care. And also remember, most sellers, they don't like the board outside the house. The reason they don't like the board outside the house is because they don't not fully invested in the agent themselves. They don't fully trust the agent. But if there's the board outside the house, which is Savills, then they can tell all their friends that they're on the market with Savills, right? And their property's on the market for the best, like the highest price ever, and the agent reckons they can get it. So they are completely hoodwinked
Yeah.
based upon the anchoring effect and also um, um, bandwagon effect. And the
Yeah.
bandwagon effect is basically, well, everybody else is using them. They're big. Well, I better give my property to them as well. So to give it to me is scary and horrible and not nice. So when we're talking about how would I do it, I'm not as, I'll be honest, I am not in the convincing business.
Yeah.
I'm in the disqualification business.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is have a conversation with a seller, which is going to open the seller's mind up because I understand consumer psychology very, very well. I know how to basically say things in such a way that isn't harmful, that isn't derogatory, that doesn't make people feel stupid, but it does make them think, oh, fuck, actually, how am I going to do it? And then suddenly it gets rid of that, like, oh my God, status, to actually not a chance will I give my property to those other agents. So it's not a case of what would John do better than them else. I know what the end result is. I know the end result is I'll get them more money because I understand exactly how to maximize the value of property and the processes, the milestones that need to be hit to do that. I understand how the property should be positioned, but I'm not in the convincing business. I'm in the
Well, I
score.
mean, the question was what can they offer that you don't, and you answered it straight away and said it's basically the brand status.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, I tend I tend not to agree with that, because a lot of the surveys that are done say that people don't have no loyalty and don't trust brands. 75% of people don't trust brands or have brand loyalty. Um, and I think if you're talking about, if you put the status on a brand, okay, what makes Knight Frank any different to Savills in Marlow?
Yeah, they're one of the same. They're one of the same.
Yeah.
But the point there though is that I understand what you're saying, but it's not just brand and it's not just status. There's also the price the property comes to market for as well. And so that there for me is that if I was going out to 10 valuations, I'll be honest, I use Savills, Knight Frank, Chancellors. I would use them all against themselves without them knowing, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't actually care if it's Joe Blogs, just created an agency. If it is one of the big ones, I'm not interested. I'm interested in the best result for the actual seller. And I may not be the best result for the actual seller. But if the
You're,
seller gets the best result, I win.
you're
That's it.
looking at it from a performance perspective, and I'm looking at it from a trusted advisor perspective. So if you say, okay, the performance aspect is that they will get you £50,000 more, or they will market it at probably £100,000 more and get you £50,000 more for your house. Therefore, the fee is irrelevant. I'm looking at it from a trusted advisor perspective and saying, okay, you trust me, I will give you the advice. And basically, you have to accept that advice, because if you don't accept the advice, I'm not trusted and we're not a good fit client.
Mm.
So basically, for you, there's no point in you going in there saying anything about performance when you're comparing yourself to the big guys. You have to go in there and say, this is who I am. This is why I should be trusted. This is what I believe. These are my convictions. This is how I do my job. And then if you want to talk to me again, pick up the phone and I'll come round and we'll talk about the price and the fee. But basically, you have to trust me. And if you don't trust me, we're not a good fit.
Yeah. And so one of the things,
And I can think of
that comparison,
a lot of reasons why I should, why people should trust you.
yeah.
Um,
So there's comparison. And one of the things I don't do when I say that I'm using their own methodology against themselves, I'm not comparing myself against them. What I'm doing in those valuations is interviewing the seller as much as a seller thinks they're interviewing me. And so, because I'm trying to work out whether that seller is going to make me ill or not, I'm trying to work out whether they are actually a good fit for me as the agent. Because I've been there. I've been there where we've had property that's been on the market for far too much money. And I've said in the past, accidentally, too much money and got it completely wrong. And now I'm having to try and untangle all that mess because I can't lie to save my life. Right. So it's not about, so when, and I can't, I'm obviously this is too short to go into exactly what I would do. But at these valuations, it's very much when I say that I'm not in the convincing business, I'm not saying the things that the seller wants to hear. So, and I understand what you're talking about. And yes, brand, most people don't care about the brand. But when it comes to it, not everybody is as transparent or as straight as you are. Most sellers,
that basically is your unique selling point. And if you're transparent, people are either they're going to make a choice. Excuse me. When you're transparent, people will make a choice. If you're not transparent, they have to make a decision. And a
yeah,
choice and a decision is not the same. If you go to a Chinese restaurant over an Indian restaurant, it becomes a choice. If you have to make a decision, you have to talk about, well, do they cook a nice meal? Is the service good? Is it a good value meal, etc., etc., etc.
mm,
So the convincing aspect of it has to be get them to make a choice. Don't ask them to make a decision. So the decision basically requires them logical, um, left brain thinking. They have to basically go through all of the things that you've told them and weigh it up and compare it against the other agents. If you take away the decision-making process and the logic and make it emotional, the right brain side thinking, and say to them, it's basically a choice, a simple choice. I mean, in no short words, do you like me or not? Do you trust me or not? It's boiling down to that basically. Are we a good fit? So it becomes an emotional choice as opposed to a logical decision.
yeah. No, I totally get it. Right. Chris Arnold, the brand within. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast, mate. I'm absolutely I mean, we're good friends anyway, but I am so grateful to you to actually agree to come on the show.
John, thank you for your time. And I know you're a busy man, and I wish you every success for the year ahead in Marlow. It's a tough market, but you'll get there with what you're doing. The character for me shines bright. Anyone in Marlow who is not using an agent with character, and with the sort of transparency and the trust and the loyalty and all of the values that come with that, they're really doing themselves a disservice. You have to really get this polarity away from transactions and get it into relationships and find the best fit estate agent. And John, you're one of the best. I've got you up there with the gods.
And that wraps up today's conversation with the incredible Chris Arnold. I hope you found this episode as eye-opening as I did. Chris's insights on trust, character, and finding the best fit in estate agency offer a powerful reminder of what truly matters in this industry. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with your network, leave a review, or drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to learn more about Chris and the Brand Within, you can check out his work at www.thebrandwithin.me, which is Chris's website. Now, again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Zero BS Estate Agency podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And until the next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep challenging the status quo.